When we speak of Delphi, it is impossible to disassociate the myth from the reality. Here in Delphi was the site of the famous oracle. Delphi, during the 6th century, became the largest religious and political center of Amphictyony, an association of neighboring states formed around a religious center. Until then, the center of Amphictyony had been in Anthili, near Thermopylae. For many centuries, Amphictyony played the role of the arbitrator in conflicts between city-states in antiquity. Because of its prestige and fame, several sacred wars were waged over the oracle, with control of the site shifting between rival city-states, but the oracle continued to remain powerful. The site of Delphi was at times rocked by earthquakes. In 548 BC and 373 BC, an earthquake destroyed the Temple of Apollo, as well as the temples of Athena Pronea. The Persians in 480 BC and the Gauls in 297 BC fled from the place when lightning and rocks fell on top of them. They believed that it was the will of God for these lands not to be besieged. temple was frequently pillaged by various conquerors. Nero is said to have removed 500 statues from the vicinity. By decree of the Byzantine emperors, the worship of the god Apollo was banned, as was the holding of the ceremony for the Pythian Games in 394 AD. A paved sacred way winds up to the Temple of Apollo, and from there to the theatre and stadium. A great Greek poet and lover of ancient culture, Angelos Sikelianos, together with his spouse, decided to revive the Olympic Games, and as part of the festival, held shows and dances, as had occurred in ancient times. The Pythian Games, which were held in Delphi, were an extremely large festival. The festival took place every 4 years to celebrate Apollo's victory over the huge serpent Python, which had prevented Apollo from founding his oracle. Musical contests and athletic events were held over 6 to 8 days. During the Games, a 3-month truce was imposed, and the victors were awarded a laurel wreath. According to ancient myth, Zeus wanted to find the center of the earth, so he released 2 eagles, one from the east, the other from the west, and caused them to fly towards the center. They met at the future site of Delphi, and the spot was marked by a stone called the omphalos, navel. The omphalos is not only the epicenter and center of Greece, but also the center of the whole world. Delphi, where God was wasteful with the beauties he scattered on the surrounding countryside, the Temple of Apollo was erected, the most famous oracle in the ancient world. The site is sacred and quite magnificent. The towering rocks seem to come out of the earth and reach the sky. This is where Zeus rested to give people tranquility, peace, and eternity. The first temple we come to is that of Athena Pronea. Here there are many shrines, the largest of them being that of Athena. The Temple of Athena was built in the 6th century BC. but few of the metopes and sculptured pediments have survived, as most of the temple was destroyed in the earthquake of 373 BC. A new temple to Athena was then built on the western side of the sanctuary in 370 BC.
Όταν βρίσκεσαι μακριά, ουρανόσταλτη χαρά, οδοδείκτη των ονείρων μου, ουράνιο τόξο, ουράνιο τόξο των στοχασμών.
Ουράνια μορφή, οπροσία νοσταλγική, οδός μυστική. Ουράνια μορφή, οπροσία νοσταλγική, οδός μυστική.
Here is the gymnasium of Delphi, which was used for the training of the young in matters to do with the body and culture. A little further away is the palestra.
Όλο μόναχος νιώθω όταν βρίσκεσαι μακριά. Ουρανός θα τη χαρά, οδοδείκτη των ονείρων μου. Ουράνιο τόξο των στοχασμών μου. Όλο μόναχος νιώθω όταν βρίσκεσαι μακριά.
The temple of Apollo was built in the 4th century BC. Legend has it that the first temple was a shack made from laurel leaves. The second temple was made from wax and bee wings. The third from bronze. The fourth was built by the mythical architects Trophonios and Agamidis, and the fifth temple of Apollo was built from money donated by various Greek cities.
Ξαγρύπνησα εσένα να προσμένω, ξεκαθαρή μορφή και συντροφιά μου. Ξανά σας μα στη μνήμη σας εφέρνω, ξημέρωμα γλυκό στα όνειρά μου. Ξαγρύπνησα εσένα να προσμένω, ξεκαθαρή μορφή και συντροφιά μου. Ξανά σας μα στη μνήμη σας εφέρνω, ξημέρωμα γλυκό στα όνειρά μου.
In the temple there used to be sculptures of Apollo with Artemis and Leto. There were also sculptures of gods and giants. Most of the sculptures are now housed in the museum. We also find here well-known sayings of wise men such as know yourself, nothing in excess.
Ξανά φέρε σε μένα τη ζωή, ξεκίνησμα στολής, Άγια μορφή. Ξαγρύπνησα εσένα να προσμένω, ξεκαθαρή μορφή και συντροφιά μου. Ξανά σας μα στη μνήμη σας εφέρνω, ξημέρωμα γλυκό στα όνειρά μου. Ξαγρύπνησα εσένα να προσμένω, ξεκαθαρή μορφή και συντροφιά μου. Ξανά σας μα στη μνήμη σας εφέρνω, ξημέρωμα γλυκό στα όνειρά μου. Ξερίζωσες της μοναξιάς την πίκρα, ξανά φέρε σε μένα τη ζωή.
There are also the caryatids here that supported a part of the structure in the place of columns.
Σε αγάπη βρήκα ξανά.
The stadium, located on the highest point of the slope, was built to host the athletic events in the 5th century BC. Its length is one stadium, that is, about 180 meters. With money donated by Herod Atticus, changes were made in the 2nd century BC. The stadium has a seating capacity for about 7,000 people. The theatre was built in the 4th century BC and can seat about 5,000 spectators. The marble omphalos, navel of the earth. Kouroi, the brothers Cleophas and Vitona from Argos. An imposing marble sphinx, a votive offering from the inhabitants of Naxos, dated 570 BC, with the body of a lion, bird wings, and a woman's head. The statue of Apollo was as tall as 15 meters. Elephantine statue of the 6th century BC. Charioteer of Delphi, a magnificent sample of metalwork from 475 BC. Offerings made by the faithful numbered more than 7,000 statuettes of animals and people in antiquity.